All right, we're going to talk about some keywords and about diagnoses and about remember I'm going to start talking about keywords. Keywords are going to be these bottom truth words. Reality is a keyword that we're going to come back to over and over. Keywords. All right, I wrote needs, peace, joy. Needs, peace, and functioning. Okay. So someone said M2K is autistic. How am I going to explain this? What am I trying to say? What I'm trying to say is that as I went to therapy and as I read things, even like reading Freud, this is old psychiatry, there's a question that comes to my mind, which is what's the purpose? What's the purpose of psychiatry? What is the purpose of medication? What's the purpose of these diagnoses and mental health? I always thought it was like happiness and peace. Being able to live at peace. And peace, I know, is a need. It's a human need to feel, there isn't like violence and shit in your life. Find an environment that's not hostile. Trying to find an environment that's not hostile to us. There's a whole other parallel concept that is much more, quote, Western. If peace is Eastern, and if the idea of finding an environment that is not hostile to you is Eastern or holistic, because it includes not only yourself, but your relationship to the environment, right? We want an environment. This is us in the environment, and we want to find a way to balance these things where the environment's not hostile to us. Functioning is a much more Western idea, in my opinion, which is, here's the key difference. In order to function, you function in a system which is already figured out, and it's good the way it is, and we ain't changing it. Can you function in this system, which is capitalist, and there's people in power? You're not going to be in power. Can you live with it? Can you play by our rules? Functioning. And functioning is a key outcome for lots of therapy and psychiatry and all that stuff. And that's a good thing, because if you're not functioning, here's another key word: violence. If you don't function for long enough, you are going to be violently compelled to either function or you're going to go to jail, right? We're just going to lock you away. So functioning is very different. People who are autistic or who have ADHD or who have anxiety or have depression or whatever, it is difficult for them to function. But that doesn't mean there's anything wrong with them. Capitalism is a system that uses violence in order to uphold itself. One thing that I have thought about, this is definitely opening up a can of worms, but I just want to say it because I'm doing my best. Are we all autistic? Autistic is just, I think, a way to categorize and label in order to uphold the system. And the idea that the system is indelible and unchanging and real. If the system is real, then people who don't fit into it are real, and we can call them something and put them in a box. It makes it real. But the system isn't real. The system is just an environment that people through history have made rigid and who continue to reify based on the past. So that's what I wanted to say about. I just think that people are different, and autism is one way that people describe differences. Yeah, when we use words and labels like that, it creates the sense that the system's real. Being inside of it and working within it without problem is objectively good, and not being able to work within it is objectively bad. Why is violence inherent in capitalism? Basically, here's my understanding. I think Bo Burnham made this very clear to me. Just watch How the World Works. Watch that video. And someone just said, I thought, now look. Papa Smirnov just said, I thought words and images weren't real. This is very confusing. I agree. This is why words are so difficult to discuss. In one sense, they're not real, and in another sense, they are incredibly real. Every time that a person says a word, every time that a thought happens, it changes reality. Every time that a word is said, it comes from a living being, right? And it borrows my life. The word itself isn't real, but my utterance of it is real. And the fact that it creates an idea in your mind is real. There's no debating that the things that people say change reality. No debating it. It's fact. We have to accept that. And by the same token, we also have to accept that humans lived long ago and didn't have words and language. And we still lived, and we created the words. And just the fact that everything existed and reality existed before words and words were created tells me for sure that they're made up, in a sense. Anyway, I don't know how we got here. I just wanted to say that M2K is going to go to that tournament and is going to take the bag. And I think he's entitled to do it. And you can describe him in many different ways, but if you use the word autism, then what I believe is that you are tacitly accepting a view of the world where the system of capitalism and dominance are real. And they are real, but we don't need to live in it, and it just reifies it or whatever. Okay? So I wouldn't say that that's, I don't know. I wouldn't stop it there. I would say M2K is M2K. And when we label people, I think that I don't think it helps for the world we're trying to build. Mr. Epping asks, what's capitalism got to do with autism? I will tell you in just a word. Oh, man. It says there is no one word. I'll tell you in multiple words. What does capitalism have to do with autism? This is not your fault. None of this is your fault. You don't have to do anything to change it. I'm just trying to describe the world as I see it. We were born and popped into a world that has a legacy and a history of European, white supremacist, patriarchal, colonialist people dominating the globe. And some of the things that they have done, what am I talking about? I'm talking about how you got here, Swill. How'd you get here, bro? Do you know how you got here? Do you know how America came into existence? Do you know what money is? Do you know how that came to be? It came to be from people for a long time. It's called history, dog. It came from people creating rules and systems in order to preserve and uphold this particular social world order. And one of the tools it's used is the key word, violence. It's always been used. It's getting more and more subtle, though, which is a good thing. You know, capitalism, here's what I would say. Capitalism. Here's what we really don't like about capitalism. It's violent. It's violent, and do you want to go to work? Do you want to go to work every day? Do you want to do all this bullshit? I bet you don't. But your labor is compelled. It's subtly violence. There's a question that I've had for a while, which is whether subtle violence is better or worse than gross violence. Also, if you get into, this is another key word, if you get into any philosophical, religious, spiritual tradition, you will examine the differences between subtle and gross. It's very important. It's so important, and it will help you make sense of how words are real and unreal at the same time. They are subtle, but they are real. So yeah, anyway, I have had a question about Kings versus capitalism. I think that Kings is much more grossly violent than capitalism. Capitalism is like trying to take the power structure and remove it a bit from just people and their own biases towards a system that's more objective, which is money. But here's the thing. Right? Like, kings are very subjective. The system of power, the rulership, the very subjective. Capitalism is more objective, but is this about melee anymore? Great question, Badmouth Blooper, because the smash ball is going to be right over to the right of capitalism. Here's melee. Capitalism is a shit game. That's one thing that I've talked about before. Capitalism is a game in a sense that all things are games that's supposed to like organize and it's supposed to be fair. My point is that Melee is a dope game, and Melee teaches us certain things just by participating in it. Just by participating in Melee, I believe that it's brought all of us to learn that we need to like care about each other, come together in community, but also competitively. Don't hurt each other. Capitalism, just by existing in it, I believe it teaches us certain things. And it teaches us to look out for number one. It teaches us that other people are truly our enemy. It makes us internalize this idea about functioning and how, like, the system is inherently good. Right? But the system is... that system, its power and its logic comes from the almighty dollar. Kings, if we lived in a kingdom, which, by the way, if you work at any small company, the CEO is the king. And you will learn to internalize the rules of the kingdom. Your brain will do it as a human. Your brain will just do it. And so what I'm trying to say is just by existing in that environment, you will change in relationship to the environment. You will change in relationship to the environment. And if the environment is very rigid, like a bad king or the system of money, then you will be forced to function within that system. But I believe that in Melee, we learn to be responsive to each other. And the system will change if it is hostile towards the individuals. For example, when I played Melee back in 2006, 2007, 2008, we used to call Sheik players gay. We used to use all kinds of words that made the community unsafe. For people like Prague, for example, who we fucking love. And when we learned that those gamer words made the environment hostile to people who we loved, the community changed. The community changed. In capitalism, when we learn that individuals, that the environment's hostile to individuals, it doesn't change. And with kings, if we're hostile to certain individuals, that might be fucking on purpose. That might be super duper on purpose. That's how this all connects, in my opinion. When we use words like autism, we subtly, not explicitly, but subtly, when we use words like that uncritically, we are subtly building and reifying capitalist systems, which none of us like. None of us like. We would love for a system that's a little bit more responsive. All right, so that's how it all connects. Thank you for asking that question. Sure that was fun. Let's just focus on peace, all right? Let's focus on enjoying Melee, living in peace. And let's try to ignore the threat of violence from Nintendo, threat of violence from Adam, what's this guy's name? Alan. Let's try to insulate ourselves and not participate in those systems. Let's try to stay grounded in reality, which is the process by which the infinite future, through our decisions and experiences, becomes forged into the indelible past, so that we do not freak out and create boogeymen and spread fear through our community, which is striving to live in peace and not in conflict. Okay? Thank you. It does. It all ties back to Melee. It all ties back to Melee. I'm here because of Melee. That's the only reason. Dr. Battle is helping edit. Thank you so much, Doc. So what's up now? Anybody want to play some Melee? I'm done talking. That was a lot. You trying to play? Is there anything else I need to talk about? I feel like I've said everything that I wanted to say.